The Department of Public Health and Human Services is pleased to bring you Aging Horizons. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, fraud, legal issues, veterans benefits, and caregiving. Aging Horizons is a program dedicated to inform and prepare Montanans on these timely issues, making a difference to you and your loved ones. Here now is today's program host.
Hi folks, today on Aging Horizons we're going to be talking about mental health and specifically mental health and veterans. Really a great topic to learn about, learn some of the resources that are out there. And we want to talk about the fact that mental health and having good care is really important. It saves lives and keeps us on the straight and narrow. Stay with us, we have a lot more to tell you.
Every 65 seconds, someone is affected with Alzheimer's or other dementias. Many become isolated at a time when help is most needed. If you or someone you love is affected, help is available, both for people with memory loss and their caregivers. Memory loss can feel frightening, but you are not alone. Call the free 24/7 Alzheimer's Association helpline, 800-272-3900, for guidance and support.
This is Bill. He just received his new Medicare card and is following some simple rules to protect himself from fraud. He knows to never give out his Medicare, Social Security, or bank number over the phone. And this is Nancy. She knows that to detect any problems, she always reads her Medicare Summary Notice or Medicare Advantage EOB to make sure the billing is correct. Both Bill and Nancy know that anything suspicious can be reported to Montana SMP at 1-800-551-3191.
45 years, 2 packs a day. It's like $80,000. I thought I was just hurting myself until I fell asleep in a chair with a cigarette. The whole house went up. I lost it all. I knew smoking was expensive, but I never thought it would cost me everything.
When I stopped showing up, Jim showed up at my door. He took me to the hospital in town to get me help. That's the day Jim saved my life.
Everyone has a role to play in preventing suicide. Know the signs and don't be afraid to speak up. If someone you know is in crisis or emotional distress, the only wrong thing to say is nothing at all. Call 800-273-TALK or text MT to 741-741.
Welcome everyone to Aging Horizons, brought to you by the Department of Public Health and Human Services. I'm your host, Kimmy Everman, and as I said in the top, we're going to talk about mental health today. And we're going to be honest, and we're going to talk about how important it is to be really on top of that, whether it's you, whether it's a family member, or a friend or anyone. With us today is a couple of great guests from the VA here in Helena. We have Joanna McCormick, and Joanna, you are a clinical psychologist at the VA.
That's right.
And welcome. And then we have Doug Stepina. And Doug, you're the suicide prevention coordinator for the VA here in Montana. Mm-hmm. Could you talk a little bit about, well, first of all, maybe just talk about what you do. I mean, what's the job for the suicide prevention coordinator? And share that with us.
I can do that.
Okay.
So good morning, and thanks for having me on here.
Sure.
And honestly, I could take up the whole show talking about all the different things that I have to do throughout the day. But if you'd asked me 10 years ago if I'd be doing this work, I definitely wouldn't be. I wouldn't have said yes.
Why?
Because I didn't even know it was a problem. Suicide, right?
Especially with our veterans.
Especially with our veterans. Yeah. I started working with kids, and I'm a veteran. I'm a combat veteran. I spent 2004 to 2009 in the Army as a paratrooper, and it wasn't until I started seeing some problems with some of my friends that I'd served with, one who did die from suicide, and honestly, just this past November, another one, and started seeing the problems that they're having with alcohol use, some of the high-risk behaviors. It just wasn't something that was real prevalent in my life. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't until I was impacted by suicide where I was more awake to it. Mm-hmm. And I'd say nowadays, anyone that I work with, there aren't very many people in Montana that aren't impacted in some way by a suicide or experienced it themselves.
Right.
So a lot of my job within the VA is actually working with our clinicians, our policy, how we handle mitigating risk within the VA clinic, implementing screening, evaluation processes, and really creating a system that is consistent across the board. So we're trying to identify who those people are that might be at risk, and then once we've identified them, provided that enhancement of care, that ongoing care.
Sure.
That's just part of it. I also work a lot with people in the community because one of the things about suicide is the VA can't reach everybody.
Right.
And you know, some of the statistics with our older population, our older adults, in 2019, just because that's the most recent data that
Sure.
the VA has right now.
Right.
66% of those suicides in Montana were from those 55 and older. So I mean, that's a big majority
That's a
of
big
our older
chunk.
population
Yeah.
who's being impacted by suicide.
Yeah.
Of those that died from suicide, though, only 35% of the veterans were actually engaged in VA care within the last year. So they're either engaged in the community somewhere, or they're not engaged at all.
Right. Right. Which is even scarier.
That is, because then who are they getting help from? How are they getting their healthcare needs met, their mental health needs met?
Right.
We're not able to identify that necessarily.
Right.
The other thing is access to firearms. You had Carl on the show
Right,
last
Carl
month.
Roston, yep.
And you guys talked a lot about some of those warning signs and access to firearms. With the veteran rate of firearm use, it was in 2018, it was 80% died from a firearm, where
Oh my gosh, that's
nationally
huge.
it's about 50%.
Oh. Yeah, and Carl would say the same because we're so much more of a gun culture here in Montana.
Right. Montana, you know, the general population, it's higher with firearms anyway, but then when you look at veterans, the familiarity with firearms, the ownership of firearms is even more extensive than the Montana culture in general.
Right, right. So, Joanna, how do you fit into this?
Oh, yes, I'm so excited to be invited to come
We're
and
glad to
share.
have you.
Thank you. So I'm a psychologist, and I also work in outpatient mental health at Fort Harrison Medical Center. I did start out at a CBOC in Kalispell.
What's
so
a
I'm
CBOC?
a little bit familiar with that. That is a community-based outpatient clinic.
Oh, okay.
So when we have our small little clinics, Kalispell, Missoula, which just opened up a new big one last week, and Great Falls and Bozeman, and you're in the Billings, Center. So yes, it's just a smaller little kind of shop in the sense of having some medical providers and mental health providers.
And you're serving veterans in each of those.
Yes.
What you call the CBOC.
Yep,
Okay.
we're serving. That's where they get their medical care. And often, sometimes, we have even more remote locations where we're using satellite, essentially, of telehealth communication.
Oh, would you talk a little bit more about that?
It is a great thing that I think because of COVID, more people are aware of. Again, having to use things virtually. But we have people on the eastern side, they can't get to Fort Harrison very easily.
Right.
So telehealth and having little shops where they can, not really a shop, it really is our clinic,
Right.
but it's not as big as a medical center,
Right.
where you have medical providers that are with you, and then you're connecting to myself and other providers throughout the state for your mental health care.
Well, and you know, I think the telehealth with mental health is really quite wonderful. You can be in your home and feel very safe, very secure, very stable.
You don't have to be on the roads in the winter.
Exactly. You don't have to be on the roads. You don't have to drive from, the top of Montana down to Fort Harrison. And what a great way to reach out to folks. Well, folks, we have a whole lot more to talk about. We want to make sure that you get all the information. We want to prevent suicide, especially in our veterans, but in our whole population. And we've got some really great information for you today. So we're going to talk, we're going to be honest, and we're going to get rid of that stigma. Come on back and we'll tell you some more.
I
think the most pleasant surprise when we turned 65 and signed up for Medicare Part B was finding out about our Welcome to Medicare preventive visit.
It was free, and it gave us the opportunity to visit with our doctors and establish a plan for our health going forward.
They reviewed our medical history, measured our height, weight, blood pressure, and counseled us on other risk factors.
To learn more about Medicare's free or low-cost preventive and wellness benefits, call your local SHIP counselor at 800-551-3191. I mentioned it's free, right?
Twice.
Elder abuse is a growing problem, and it's happening right here in our Montana communities. At least 1 in 10 older adults are victims of physical or emotional abuse, financial exploitation, or neglect. To get help or report elder abuse, call your local area agency on aging or Adult Protective Services at 1-844-277-9300.
I was the last guy you'd expect to get diabetes. I was a competitive runner and I always took care of myself. So when I was diagnosed, it kind of threw me. But it's really encouraging to know I'm not alone with it. There are a lot of other people going through the same things as I am. It takes some effort. You have to keep after it. Exercise, meds, and diet are the key. But there are a lot of folks who want me to succeed. Diabetes is not the end of the world. With effort and attitude, you can have a normal life.
When I first got here, I was struggling. No money, sleeping on the living room floor of a friend's apartment.
Diana Johnson, Energy Share Coordinator.
I know what it's like to need a hand. Now that I work with Energy Share, I help people pay their winter heating bills. I don't care if you're a veteran, a senior citizen, have a family, or are single. Energy Share is here to help.
If you need help paying your power bills, call or visit Energy Share, helping Montana families get through the winter since 1984.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Aging Horizons. We're talking about mental health and suicide prevention today, especially with our veteran population. We have with us Doug Stupina. Doug, you're the suicide prevention coordinator for the VA here in Montana. And Joanna McCormick. And Joanna, you are a clinical psychologist at the VA here in Montana.
Yes.
Let's start with something pretty dear to me, which is the stigma of mental health, reaching out to get mental health assistance. And especially in a place like Montana where people are very proud and very much want to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. But what that can be a problem.
Yes. I think for many rural people and as a population, for veterans themselves, families, it's hard to ask for help. I think that it goes beyond any demographic. It's really hard to ask for help. What we do know is that older adults tend to access mental health services at a far less number than younger veterans and younger people. Sometimes there is a belief that, that's not where I want to spend my time, or because we have a lot of resilience as we age as well. And so trying to figure out, where do I have time for me? And some interesting statistics is that for Montana VA, we have a larger than average number of older adults, and our veteran population is increasing. So just to kind of give you an idea, is that more than half of our enrolled veterans in the VA have served in the Vietnam era. So that number is going to increase, and that's something that we are looking at, as in 5 years, that number is going to be much, much greater.
Yeah.
So needing services to be available, but then also addressing stigma.
Right.
And so one thing that we know from the research is that older adults that do participate in mental health therapy have just as a great chance to get better. So they actually have greater signs of success in succeeding in completing treatment, participating. So once we can get them in the door, they have a greater chance of really feeling better.
Wow, that's awesome to hear, because I wouldn't have expected you to say that. Is that they show more getting ahead of it and sort of really feeling better.
It can be so helpful, and that's the thing. Often we're taking care of the needs of others, and this is a time sometimes when we're not as busy, our life has different types of challenges. We may have more unstructured time where our thoughts may lean towards our regrets or the different things, the stressors. And here's a place to actually get some help, but also develop skills and work on that resilience that's already there, and get better.
Maybe you've forgotten it.
And Joanne, You mentioned something in there as far as the not being as busy. One of the things, and I can vouch for this, that I notice, and a lot of people I work with that are more in that middle age, 30, 40, is we're so busy, you don't necessarily have time to dwell on the things that you need to work on. So PTSD might actually start showing up later, because right now I don't have time to be depressed. I got this to focus on, this to focus, this to focus on. And a lot of times that can compile so much that you're not taking care of yourself, that all of a sudden you find yourself in that crisis.
Yeah.
And where you're just overwhelmed, or things aren't going the way that you want them to, or something happens, you lose a job, you come back to some of those risk factors that while things are going well, they're going well, but then you might not have done some of the work, and something happens in life. One of those social determinants of health change, you lose your job, you don't have stable housing all of a sudden, you're not getting those your needs met for your kids.
Hits.
The COVID pandemic.
It just changes.
It changes an aspect of life. And now we're in crisis. And we come back to things that weren't necessarily a risk factor now are.
Oh dear.
And you start seeing some of these warning signs start showing up.
Like?
So if you're a person that maybe you're a spouse, maybe you're a friend, and you start seeing things like someone isolating more, using more alcohol or any other substance, what do you do in that? I mean, that's where I come in, that's when I might ask someone if they're having thoughts of suicide, if they're having thoughts of ending their life. But I'm gonna push a question back to you, Kimmy.
Sure.
Why do you think one of the reasons a person might not ask is?
Judgment. I'm not crazy. That was actually the first thing that came to my mind, and I hate to say that word because it's so not what I believe in, but that's what I think people think.
We hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the general person is gonna think that. Why? Because we come back to the stigma, right? That there's something wrong with you. Let's take a person with cancer.
Right.
What happens when a person has cancer and the family is wrapping around them, the friends are wrapping around them, it's you're brave, you're strong, you can get through this.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly, yep.
When it's the mental health concern, a lot of times it's well, just get over it. Or just you're okay. Things aren't that bad.
Yeah.
It's not
just
smile.
Let's
get you into help, right? Just choose to be happy. Well, we can make choices that can help us get there, but we can't just choose to be happy in most cases.
Right.
So having that awareness, having that psychoeducation, getting help is what's going to help change that.
Well, and I think it's so important. We talk lots and lots about stigma on this show, and how very much we want people to fight against that, because we need them to know that they're valued people who we really want to have around longer, and we really want them to feel better about their lives. And where you guys come in here, especially with our veterans, which is so fantastic. And I think we have all heard the terrible idea, the terrible news about veterans committing suicide, and we really want to help, I think.
Yeah.
Well, one quick statistic: one suicide. A study was done that showed it affects 135 people after a suicide.
The ripple effect.
The ripple effect.
And we'll be right back, folks.
Respite. It's okay to need it. It's okay to want it. Will you provide it?
The hard part about having outside help is that there's not a lot of people out there who can do that kind of work. We've been very fortunate that our Bonnie has been with us for 7 years. I don't know what I'd do without her. I need her in our lives. She's our second mother. And I can't help but think of her that way.
To find out how to change lives, including your own, call 800-224-6034 or visit respite.mt.gov.
Did you just text me?
I didn't want to disturb you if you were sleeping.
Sleeping? I'm sitting right next to you, silly.
There you are. Hey, I found a couple of Medicare helping programs online that I think we ought to look into.
It says if we qualify, we can get help paying for our prescription drugs. Oh, and there's a program that can help pay our Part B premium.
To learn more about extra help and Medicare savings programs, call your local SHIP counselor today.
Maybe I better text him.
This is Sergeant Jones. Please respond. I was separated from my squad. Requesting backup. Anyone? Please respond. I'm all alone here.
Every generation produces heroes, men and women who step forward to defend our country in time of need, no matter the personal cost to themselves. And though we can never fully repay them, we can make sure they have access to low-cost, long-term care when they need it. That's what Montana's Veterans Homes are all about. If you've got a hero in need in your family, call us. We can help.
Hi folks, welcome back to Aging Horizons. We're here talking about our veterans and mental health and suicide prevention. Joanna, let's talk with you for a second about caregivers, however. That not just the patients, but the caregivers, what they're going through.
Thanks. Yes, caregivers. Now, many family members are caring for veterans and older individuals, and often the family themselves and the family supports are aging as well. So sometimes we really talk about older adults and aging and concerns that we have, but I like to encourage, and the VA does too, the whole family can be impacted. And so caregivers are also at a high risk with suicidal ideation. They actually have a higher risk than the average frontline worker with suicidal ideation because of the burden of caregiving. And so we do have some resources. We are concerned about caregivers in the family, but we as the VA want to help the veteran by also helping the family. And we find that that is something we're trying to roll out and have more services available at the Montana level as well as a national level to help families.
Sure. Well, Doug, why don't you tell us a bit about accessing these services? Because we can't end this show without talking about that.
Well, we're looking at two different people here. The person who needs the access to the service and the one who sees the person who wants their loved one to get access. Right?
Right, exactly.
So the VA has so many different programs, and most people don't even know of many of them. So if I'm a loved one, if I'm a friend, if I'm a caregiver, and I have that person who I'm like, you know what, you can get in. You've been complaining about your hearing for how long? Let's get you in and get you an audiology appointment. There's actually it's a website and a phone number. It's called Coaching into Care. That is one of the coolest things because I can give that phone number a call and they will actually not only help me understand what services are available, but also give me tips, give me some ways to work with that person that I'm identifying that needs to get some help, to help coach them.
Because it can be a really lonely process, getting to the end where that person will actually take that service.
And exhausting.
Yes, and exhausting.
And just like what Joanna was mentioning.
Right, and even veterans will say, it's taken me a few years to get here because it's a process. And what can families do?
Right.
So that's one way. Another one, if you end up seeing someone in crisis, we have the crisis line. It's the Lifeline and the Veterans Crisis Line are the same phone number. You just push the 1. It's so you asked one of the things that I do afterwards. When someone calls the crisis line, one of the jobs of our team is to then follow up with that person within 24 business hours. So when we're following up, we're helping them identify, we're first assessing them and seeing if the crisis has de-escalated.
Right.
But then we're offering, is it mental health support you need? Is it a medical problem that you need? And working on getting them potentially enrolled in the VA in Montana, or just educating them on what services are, helping them get an appointment set up. So those are some of the follow-up kind of case management things that we would do with the veteran afterwards. Another way is just go down to the VA. The vet center can help give some access, and we haven't talked about the vet center as much, and that would entail a whole nother segment probably. But we have business office, we have enrollment phone numbers. You can do it online for those who are a little bit more internet savvy and can navigate, because there's just so much information online.
Right.
But also go to the CBOC. So if you have a community-based medical center for the VA, you can just walk in, even if you're not enrolled.
Right.
Just go in.
Really?
Yes, just go in.
Okay.
And we will take next steps.
I mean, you
wouldn't know.
Yeah, and you know, over the years, these things change, and now it seems like that's a really proactive stance to take.
If you need help, that's a good place to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, the technical side of things has really grown incredibly, especially with, you know, one good thing that did come out of the pandemic was telehealth. Also, just a lot of resources for a person to help themselves. There's a great website if you're interested in some of the things that you're dealing with and what kind of services are available to utilize. It's this new program called REACH.
Okay.
It's just va.gov/REACH, and you can actually navigate. These are the things I'm interested in. These are some of the problems I'm facing. And it'll give you a whole list of different things available to you.
So is that for the veteran or the caregiver or both?
Either one can use it.
Okay.
Yeah. So whoever may be more, savvy as far as using that technology.
Sure.
Or the one who's just interested.
Right. And that will help them understand what's out there in the process.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, if it's a woman who wants specific services for women's services, we have a women's health coordinator who can help orient them to everything that's accessible for them, because women's health is different. And then otherwise, it's just having your DD 214, and
there you go.
That's one of the catch if you're going to walk in.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know one single veteran who doesn't know exactly where their DD 214 is.
I run into quite a few. So sometimes it's getting it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to be that general, but I know my husband knows where his is.
Right. Most do.
And it's a very important document.
It is.
Well, it's just been great having you guys with us today and bringing this great information to us and helping us serve our veterans, because freedom is not free. It never has been, and we need to be there for our heroes. So happy that you guys are doing this program, and we'll have you back on, and we'll talk about some more things in the future. And folks, mental health, it's just so important. And if you have medical issues, that can also be a problem for your mental health. So maybe you want to get a medical issue taken care of and then work towards making your mind feel better. We really want you to use the resources, reach out, forget the stigma. For Aging Horizons, I'm Kimmy Everman, and thanks for being with us.
Special thanks to the Department of Public Health and Human Services for their continued support. Hosts on Aging Horizons are program specialists at the Montana Office on Aging. Production facilities provided by Video Express Productions. For more information about Aging Horizons, call the Department of Public Health and Human Services toll-free at 800-332-2272.